Okay. So last night I was talking about discovering the heart of Buddhism. I was talking about what we mean when we use the word mind or the word heart in English, and what that means experientially, and to some extent how that related to Buddhist teachings about the true nature of mind, or Buddha nature, or the indestructible heart essence. And one I didn't mention is the unborn, the non-born, the non-conditioned. I used the phrase, I think, several times, true nature of reality. What the Buddha discovered, that is not conditioned and therefore is not subject to birth, aging and death. It's not subject to suffering because it's non-conditioned. Different ways of referring to the same ultimate reality, perhaps one could say. So what has that got to do with meditation? What is meditation? Yesterday I talked about reflection and how meditation was those moments where we let go of our concepts and we just, for a moment, had some insight into what's not conditioned, what's not impermanent, a kind of momentary simplicity when we let go of all views, or we let go of a significant amount of the views that we hold about all and everything, but in particular the underlying attitudes that actually belie an underlying, if you like, false view about the nature of reality. And if we let go of that to some extent, I don't know if you can say to some extent, or yeah, I think you can, that you kind of one can have these moments of simplicity where one senses the true significance of oneself, or the true significance, some sense that there is something meaningful in our existence, kind of almost like an explosion of qualities, just for a moment. I always associate that with when we laugh. Like, we tend to laugh when we've been tricked somehow into thinking one thing, and then suddenly we have to drop all that because the point is somewhere else. And at the moment we drop all our concepts, we have to, or we don't laugh. And I think of that laugh as this explosion of qualities, because there's so much joy in it, there's so much wisdom in it, there's so much insight in it. It's momentary, but nonetheless, we can feel better for the rest of the day on the basis of that. It goes a long way. So there's something there that's just ready to burst out at any moment, that we're holding down by our views, gross views and opinions, judgments and so on that are going on all the time. And even when they've kind of lost their hold to some extent, there's an underlying view about the nature of reality, self and other, time and space, those very fundamental views that you're not even aware that you have. They're holding back that reservoir of amazing qualities that are our true nature. So what is meditation? It's those moments of breaking out of that. So how do we meditate? Good question. How do you go to, okay, the first thing we think, okay, let's remove the distractions, the obvious distractions. Let's not be doing anything else at least. So let's find a quiet place, let's sit still, let's set a time that I'm not going to let anything else intervene. So that has a sort of formality to it. It's a kind of a way of trapping ourselves. You could say, well, from one point of view, it's not necessary. You could just be awake wherever you are, just like that. So since that's kind of turning out to be a bit of a problem, let's set ourselves a discipline, let's set ourselves a routine that actually we're going to sit for 15 minutes, half an hour, or whatever it is we've decided to do. And to keep that up regularly and to make a strong resolve that we're going to do that, so that actually we do. And that creates the initial space that we need. So when people ask what we're doing, in order to put people in the ballpark, we say we're going to meditate. But actually, what do we really do? It's an interesting question, isn't it? We set that aside, and it's a good idea to really relate to the Buddha or the shrine or something that is awakening you to what it's all about, some symbol perhaps that awakens you to what it's all about, and then to maybe do some ritual to reinforce the sense of this is an important thing that I'm doing. It's got a connection with all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. There's some power in it. I'm relating to that power. I'm making prostrations, or I'm making offerings, or I'm bowing, or at least acknowledging the presence of that, if you like, the unborn, the non-born, the Buddha. And then what? So one thing we might sort of think to ourselves is, okay, now I'm going to sit, and I'm going to sit in a very awake posture, and I'm going to do something to calm my mind down, which is usually the most obvious thing that needs doing. Once you've sat there, you kind of, hang on, bring the mind home, if you like. Bring it so that it's integrated in one place, so I can start to even begin to reflect, to be honest, kind of change of gear. So then there's various ways one can do that. This is what you call calming the mind, shamatha. So do you need an object for that or not? You can bring your attention into your body. We were talking about that to some extent yesterday. You can bring your attention to your breath. There's various ways of doing that. The way Trungpa Rinpoche taught, and the way Rigzin Shikpo taught, and therefore the way I teach initially anyway, is the sense of just being aware of the breath on the out breath as a kind of reminder of the spaciousness of the mind, and then not being too tight, not trying to make your mind stay with it on the in-breath, but just let it relax. I don't always find that works. It's I think maybe it's even more difficult and less relaxing than just staying with the in-breath, because you don't have to remember to let go. It's something kind of natural about, if you're aware of the breath, you're aware of it either on the in-breath or the out-breath. The important thing is not to get too tight about it. So you're kind of using the breath to kind of bring your attention back to the present, really. You're using the body awareness to bring your attention back to the present. And it's then that you start to notice that this spinning off into thinking about the past, thinking about the future, thinking about all and everything, and that actually that's interesting. But what the problem is, we get lost in the thinking. So then this becomes a problem, because then it's not doing anything different than when you're not meditating, because you're just lost in thinking. It may be a good moment to start, to think about the problems you've got and things that you need to sort out or to plan your day. It's a nice quiet moment for doing that, but it isn't not really different from what you're normally doing. So you kind of feel that's not quite right. I'm not learning anything from this, although I might enjoy it and I might enjoy my meditation because I can have some quiet time to think. It's good. I wouldn't knock that. But is that meditation in the sense that we're really waking up and waking out of our habitual patterns, our views and all the things that are trapping us? Well, not necessarily at all. But there is a fine edge there, which I want to talk about a bit more. But generally speaking, the idea of the meditation is that as you notice thinking, you bring your attention back to something that's now in the present, your body or your breath, and you just try to relax with that, just to be present with that. But one instruction I like to give at this point is to have at least some sense of the heart being involved, because of the language difficulty of using, as I was saying last night, mind, thinking, intellect, heart, kind of something different, like more about feeling perhaps, or it's got other things in it, but there's a tendency to relate that to, not to include it in when you think of mind. So I give this instruction to just remember, you don't need to kind of get terribly involved about heart, but just when you say the word, something happens, I think, physically. Heart, okay, present, I'm present, the body, breath, heart, from my heart somehow. Don't need to think about it, I think it has an effect just to remember it, kind of, and then just be simple. Be simple, or be present. It's an interesting word, isn't it? To be present. It's got a nice resonance, hasn't it, in English? To be present. It's kind of like you're present. And I really appreciate your presence. Oh, my presence. It's very interesting that it means something, isn't it? Intuitively, it means something. And to me, it's like you're present, but not just because you fixed on the present, but because you've brought yourself and everything that you are as a kind of it's almost like pregnant with something. A sense of presence. There's something there very alive, very integrated and communicative in some way. If someone's really present, you feel you've got them, their whole being somehow. So it's a good word. Waking up to, here we are. Heart. Then really being present. When I started finding out about non-violent communication, and we would do various exercises of empathy and listening to each other, and I must say I was very amazed how powerful another person's presence is, even without their doing anything or thinking anything. I could actually contribute to someone else's well-being by just being present. And I could feel it when other people did it for me. And I must say it was a revelation, and although you'd think, well, I'd been practicing Buddhism for all those decades, surely I had noticed that. Yes, I had noticed it in the sense that you meet, go into the presence of my teachers and practitioners, you feel their presence, and you like to talk about, oh, it's fantastic, you can really feel their presence. But the fact that we all have that, just naturally, it doesn't matter who we are, we can contribute our presence, and it actually communicates itself. Like we're always communicating our presence. We might think that we're keeping our, holding back from saying something, but actually I think it's quite shocking to what extent people are picking up on it one way or another. And that's simply to become aware of that and allowing it and being present with it already integrates something within ourselves and within the environment, to other people. It's worth being present, it's worth being simple. I think often we reject that option because it doesn't seem enough. It wouldn't be enough for me just to be here. I ought to be doing something. I don't know what to do, so I think I'll panic. Or I'll fill my head with worries about, am I doing the right thing or not, and I'm no good, and blah, blah, blah. Because we didn't realize it was actually going to be enough just to be present in a very simple way. So this is, excellent news, because we can always do that, can't we? We always, well, maybe we can't always do it, but we always have that option. We always have the option to just be present and to have some kind of sense that that in itself is enough. And from that place, which is a kind of place of confidence, it's the kind of confidence that we need. It's the only confidence we need, really. Just to have that amount of respect for our own being and presence, to be simple. And naturally from that place one is open. And that, you could say, on a simple level of what we mean when we say somebody's very open. If we meet somebody and we find them open, we automatically feel very happy in their presence, because we feel, oh, there's a space here, a very alive space to explore and to be in, and for some kind of communication to happen. It's not just empty space. It isn't that we open and then there's nothing. We open and there's this wonderful space that's full of qualities of some kind. Playfulness, intelligence, creativity, new things to explore, options. It's like, openness is like not just nothing. So when we sit to meditate, to be simple, you might find just touching on the word openness, or touching on the word awake, or heart, or be present. It's just enough to remind you how to be simple. So you could say they're kind of instructions. But the trouble with giving instructions for meditation is then that works against being simple, doesn't it? Because you've got an instruction, am I doing it right or not? You go into your head, you start thinking, you start worrying. So perhaps just to remind yourself of these words and know that it's about being simple. And this is where reflection comes in. Obviously, when you talk about the Buddha and the great practitioners and yogins practicing meditation, we're kind of referring to the state of, some state of samadhi, some state of being able to maintain a presence of mind, either with or without an object. And so when we're sitting to meditate, we have this idea somehow that we would like it probably too. It would be interesting and probably useful to be able to maintain a certain state of mind for long enough that it becomes, if you like, it becomes us. In Tibetan and Sanskrit, the word for what we often translate as meditation means simply to, I suppose, become what it is that you're meditating on. So you become, or you customize yourself to an insight, for example. So you meditate on it, it means you integrate it into your being. So it's no longer just thinking about it or ideas about it, but you become that, so that when you're meditating on the true nature of mind, it's not that you have it as an object, but you've had some insight into what it is, and now you're maintaining that insight in some sense. You're able to maintain it so it's starting to become stable. That's what the meditation is for, to stabilize that insight. So where does the insight come from? If we just follow the breath or become aware of the body, feelings, become aware of thinking as thinking, not holding on, not getting lost in the thinking, but coming back so that we keep awake, keep present, keep open. But where does the insight come in? And what is insight? I think there has to be reflection. An easy example, an obvious example is impermanence. So the Buddha used this. So you think about it, you hear about it, you notice it in your life, impermanence, yeah? You can think about it in quite some detail. And in a way, that's still taking in information. Oh yes, this life, this body, my home, my parents, my family, my job, my friends. All of this is impermanent. If it doesn't end before, it will end at death. So there's nothing there to hold on to cling on to. You can think that and be quite unmoved by it. So you can imagine saying it to somebody and they say, well, yeah, everyone knows that. Yeah. So what? So that's the thinking about it is on that level. Reflecting on it is when you notice to yourself how attached you are and how shocked you're going to be when that happens. And then there's some kind of allowing that feeling of whatever feeling is there. You might find you're not particularly shocked. You know, you might be shocked at how unshocked you are. You know, like, so what? You know, okay, I'm going to die. I mean, everyone dies. What's the problem? Okay, fine. But then some kind of uneasiness starts to come up. So if someone were to come and point a gun at you now, would that be okay? Would you feel fine about it? Oh, and so you're reflecting now, oh, actually, I don't think I would be too happy about that. Yeah. Somebody told me I was going to, oh, you know, my wife was going to die next week. That wouldn't, actually, no, I was thinking it didn't really matter, but now I realise the potential for suffering in that, because I'm not really accepting it. I'm not really aware of it. I'm much more absorbed in planning as if I'm going to live forever. And my family's going to live forever. And whatever it is that I'm investing all my energy in getting upset about or excited about or whatever, it's not congruent with really being aware that it's all impermanent, and that, is it really worth all the effort? Is it worth all the effort? Some kind of incongruence there. I'm working so hard, and then I'm just going to die. So that, when it starts to touch you, it starts to move you, is when that's what the reflection is there for. That's why you need that phase of taking what you're thinking and then applying it to how you're living and how you're being and how you're treating things in your life. Is it congruent? For some people this happens, you know, this kind of reflection has been very strong in them from a very early age. You know, like children, they reflect, don't they? You tell them something that everyone else accepts, and they go off and think about it, and they come back with some really powerful statement, which you realise they're right. They're more right than you are, but nonetheless, you tell them, you know, don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. But they're right. It could really happen, whatever it is they're saying. But we tend to lose that reflective power as we buy into our views. So, you know, it's terribly important to get on in life and to, you know, to have a good salary and a good job, and, you know, people who don't are losers, and, oh, I don't want to be a loser, so, you know, oh, I don't want to be a failure, you know, I must pass my exams, I must do well at school, you buy into all of that without any reflection. Is it really true? Some people, you know, they keep their wits about them and they work out, well, okay, if I work hard at school, I might get that, but I don't want that. So I'm not going to work hard at school, I'm going to have a good time, I'm going to, you know, learn football or I don't know. Whatever it is I think is more important. There's some intelligence in that, there's some reflection gone on there, possibly. Because if we just take the views that are around us and just buy into them, then when it comes to actually reflecting on things, we're too anxious, we're too attached, we're too caught up in these worlds that we've bought into. And then, of course, when you do reflect at that point, there's a part of you that's thinking, oh no, if I reflect too deeply on that, I'll stop what I'm doing. And that wouldn't be good. So those views that we're holding often prevent us reflecting. Well, often that's what is preventing us reflecting. So the job of reflection is to wake us up, to look at the thinking and the incongruence between that and what in our heart of hearts is really important, we know is really important. So there's a kind of, it's very different from just thinking about something, because the reference is always coming back to what's most important to you, what has real significance. And that's why it requires somebody to point out to you what is significant. Either it's done through a traditional teacher or some situation in life, something that wakes you up to recognize that incongruence, then that sense of unease and a need for a deeper meaning that brings everything into meaningful alignment, as it were. And that's when you can really start developing insight in the meditation. Because as you notice the views that are actually strongly held but not true, when you're in the meditation, you start to notice, I'm habitually mistaking my habitually held view for reality itself. It is actually possible to wake up, to recognize that, to connect to the heart and what's really important, to be very simple with that, to open out, and then to take the necessary action to let that go, to give my allegiance to what is meaningful and true, and stop giving my allegiance to what is taking me away from that. So it can be quite a shocking experience. There's quite a built-in resistance. Every view has its protectors, as it were, that you have to get past, you sneak past, or find a way of getting round. And then it can be quite shocking, because you may suddenly see your life in a completely different way. But you can take that, stay with that as simply as you can, and gradually those options will start to open up. You'll start to recognize the options that are there. That in many ways we've been blocking from ourselves, or at least these views have been blocking from us, holding us back from them. And then this process of insight, this change of view, so it's more aligned to what's truly meaningful and real, ultimately real, or matters. It's real, it's true, it's not illusion. It goes far beyond just simply our present life. It goes into the nature of reality itself and what we are ourselves. And that we go from those kind of attitudes that are kind of closing down our options to underlying attitudes about what I think I am, what I think others are, what I think I am in relationship to the universe, what I think time is, what I think space is, what I think self and other is. You start to notice that underlying assumptions or views that we have that can also be let go of. We can become so simple that we let those go. It could suddenly happen that we suddenly find our whole world has disappeared. I mean, it can be very shocking. That's why when you set up the meditation, you start with this idea of protection, this idea of a refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, Sangha, and that will hold you as that ultimate meaning when your whole world disappears, because that is there. You're connected to that. And that's very similar to when you die. When you die, everything you've been holding on to in this life, your whole world is gone. Many people would like to think they'd gone too. They hope they're not going to experience that. But it's a hope. I don't think it's based on anything other than a hope. We've got no experience to suggest that would happen, because what appears in our minds, our experiences that appear, they just appear. There was never a time when there was nothing there for it to appear to. That was a given, always. It didn't come from anywhere. So to think it didn't come from anywhere, but it disappears at some point, it's not a very... Personally, I can't get my head around it. It's kind of more like a, let's not think about it, than a considered view. So it seems much more likely to me that, and it comes to the moment of death, everything that I'm familiar with will be, not there to be relied on. The body won't be there to be relied on. The breath won't be there to be relied on. I don't know what state my mind will be in, how my thoughts and, what kind of hallucinations might be there that could be confusing me. But if I can remain with that trust of my connection with the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and if I can remain simple with that trust, I can really believe I will find myself protected by that and be able to continue with my practice on the path to awakening. And that's how I meditate. When I'm meditating, it helps me to notice all my views, to think of the moment of death. Because then I notice all the things I'm holding on to. And I can become very simple then, because I recognize, actually those things are not going to be there at the moment of death. And immediately my sense of proportion changes, the proportionate importance of all these things. I have this image. It used to be this image of an explosion blowing up the world, and then suddenly, there you would be there. What are you going to be relying on now? So that's a good place to meditate. Recently it's been this idea of a tsunami, a sort of, 100-foot high tsunami, just kind of go, boff. It kind of drop all my concepts of what I would be holding on to. What would I have left? That tremendous sense of the awake quality. I'm sure I'd be very awake. Very awake and very, I could link to my heart. I could link to that inspiration coming from the non-conditioned, the Buddha. There could be that very strong presence, actually, at that moment of the non-conditioned. And then I could just open to it. I do believe I could do, that would be an option open to me. And that's what I want to be ready for. And actually turns out to be a really good way to meditate for the rest, see you through the day. See you through the rest of the session or whatever. It's really... But that's arisen from reflection. Applying it to my own situation. Kind of being honest, being very honest. Being prepared to admit that I'm holding on to things that are not really real, not really important. I'm investing my energy in a crazy way. Really being honest about that. This is what reflection does. It's kind of an honesty and a bringing bringing into alignment with what I myself consider important. It's not some voice from outside saying, you know, you ought to be doing this. It's me, myself, who doesn't want to face death in any other way than the way I just described. I want that, and I want to face life like that. So this is coming from me. And okay, I might only get a moment of it, but that is so much more than not having it at all. It's immeasurably more. And it is actually powerful, just a moment of it. And the rest of the time, one has that haunted feeling. One's haunted by a sense of, I've lost it again. And I think that's what drives you back to reflection. Because you're haunted by that insight, however deep it was or however fleeting it was. And because it haunts you, you want to get back to your meditation. Because it's so difficult to get back there unless you remove all the distractions. So now, instead of going to meditate because I said I would do it, you're going to meditate because you're haunted by what you've intuited and you know is true. And you're haunted almost to the point of disgust by everything that takes you away from it. And in Tibetan, they actually use the word disgust. It's like you're sick. You're sick of it. You're sick of all those habits of mind that are taking you away from that truth that you can sense within yourself. And that's what, that reflection on that and that increasing dis-ease with that incongruence between what is really important and what I'm actually doing, it gets more and more painful. The Buddha never did say that it doesn't get more painful. In fact, he said that's the first noble truth, that it becomes more and more painful. And it's only when it's become painful enough that we make the right choices, that we make the right effort. So it's a wonderful invitation I'm making for you all. Reflect and feel the pain, really feel the pain. Not because, for any other reason other than it's through feeling the pain that you will actually find liberation. There is a solution to this. But if you don't allow yourself to feel the pain enough, you keep sliding off it. You're not motivated enough. But when you really feel the pain of it enough, you feel desperate. And you feel desperate for something that's genuine, not some kind of ambition. Oh, I want to be a great yogi. I want to be like him. I want to be like that. No, I want the congruence of actually doing what I really believe is true and letting go of those views that are pulling me away from it. The motivation is coming from within yourself. So in a particular meditation session, you may find that after the initial settling down, your meditation, your awareness actually dulls out. It kind of becomes bored, dull. And okay, you bring it back, you become more calm, you start to notice that thoughts are there and let the thoughts go, and you let go into the space. And you might be doing this maybe for a long time. At first it feels really good because you feel, oh yeah, I'm really enjoying this, I'm really doing it, I'm obviously, this is my thing, and I'm getting the point of it. And then there comes a point where it just doesn't seem to grab you anymore. It just doesn't seem to be working. I think it's a very interesting word we use. It's not working. It's not working. Something's supposed to be happening. So there's that awake quality is telling you this is not being awake. So that's intelligent. And it's good to recognize that. And not to just be satisfied and say, well, it doesn't matter. It does matter. It's like waking. If you're going to wake from a dream, if you're going to wake up, something has to happen. There has to be a difference between being asleep and dreaming and waking. So that's a good, you should feel pleased that you've noticed it's not working. There's something there. But of course that could have been a view, it's supposed to be like such and such and it's not. Therefore it's not working. That could be just thinking. Or it could be reflection where you actually work out, that's just thinking, I just want it to be a certain way, and because it's not, I'm trying to think my way out of how it actually is, and you wake up to that, and you let go of all that manipulative effort. But another time you may recognize, well, I've let go of the manipulative effort, and now I'm just daydreaming, I'm just dreaming. I'm not awake at all. So then the voice, or that part of you that can sense there's something not working, is probably right. It's probably now time for reflection. So what am I actually here for? What is being awake? Why am I here? What am I doing this for? To really reflect on that. Reflect on impermanence. Reflect on, what do I mean when I say I'm in the moment? That's quite a kind of nice phrase, isn't it? To be in the moment, to be present in the moment. But then when you look, am I ever really in the moment? Very interesting one. What would it mean if you were? How would you know? This is a more reflective, I say exercise, but it's just reflection. What would it mean? How do I know if I'm in the moment? So that could go into thinking. You could have some theory about it. But reflection is more about, when I hear in the moment, it means something. But then I have a doubt. Just noticing, you don't even need to use words, you just notice you're having a doubt. Am I really in the moment? Am I just remembering the past moment? Is that just a memory of the past moment? Do I know it in the actual moment? Or is it a memory? And is the memory in the moment? And you might think, well, doesn't that get to be like, too much thinking? It can, yes. So you have to keep a check on that, whether this is actually something it's almost like something that I thought I knew, which is a moment. I thought I knew what a moment meant. And then just by checking, am I really experiencing it, I start to doubt I know what it means. And then from there, there's an option opens up of not assuming you know what it means. And then you can notice in your own experience what happens when you let go of that assumption. And at that moment you might feel a real sense of insight, of just a moment of, oh, there is another option. Only for a moment, a sense there's another option. And then it's almost like that's a catalyst for a whole process of deepening deepening insight. But it, in my experience, it always comes together with at least a little tiny bit of reflection. If I were not to do the reflection, then when I start to go dull, I don't know how I would ever come out of it. It might happen just naturally, but if it wasn't happening naturally, that would, even just a little tiny bit of reflection around what's really happening. And there's a faculty we have to adjust. You know, when you're learning to ride a bicycle or something like that, if you tried to do it by thinking, you know, a little bit more that way, a little bit more that way, oh, hold it like that, I don't know if you would ever learn to ride a bike, but you suddenly notice that you have a faculty within you that can find how far to the left or right you need to lean. And we have that at a very deep level. It's, I think, perhaps that's what you call a faculty of smriti, it's often translated as mindfulness. We have a faculty to be able to notice how far we're going and what the corrective move is. And I think with meditation, we have that same faculty. That moment of insight is like that moment of balance. You touch that moment of balance on the bike, don't you? Then you know what it feels like, and then you find it again, and you have this faculty to kind of, it's a very awake faculty, isn't it? You know how far to go, and intuitively you know how to find that point of balance again. And in the same way with the insight, you get a moment of insight. From then on, your whole system somehow knows how to find it again. Okay, it might take a while, and sometimes you're way off, but you have an intuitive sense of where you're going. So when you're on it, it's like the meditation. When you're just off it, you need a bit of reflection, just a bit, however much it needs to get back. So I wanted to stress that aspect of meditation is a general topic. Because I think what happens if you don't talk about it like this, we do it anyway, but maybe with a bit of a guilty feeling that we shouldn't be. You know, I should be holding myself tight, keeping my mind still, but I'm not. I'm reflecting, actually. I'm spending a lot of the time reflecting, and that actually, I think, is good. I think that's important. So that's my talk for this one. Not bad.